All right, here's an 8 exercise warm-up series. It's a little bit more advanced, definitely getting you ready for a total body day that we like to start with. James is going to start with a breathing drill here called bear breathing, which I really like, especially if you have a really wide barreled chest or you're just prone to low back issues. Either one, it works really great. So he's in quadruped position here, and then he's going to simply drive as much air through this upper part of his back as possible, almost like he's doing cat-cow type thing, and then he's just going to relax. So he's doing a hard exhale, right? So all of that, when he was pushing up, he was pushing his sternum all the way through his thoracic spine here, rounding and creating a hump. All this is getting air. So it's really great. He's basically teaching his shoulder blades how to come around and move on his rib cage, and it's really going to allow for some relaxation to happen in that upper body where a lot of people create tension. It's also going to give all of this down below some space to actually breathe because his diaphragm is pushing all that air out. So it's priming his core and just getting him in a better position to do something like squat, deadlift, or bench press of any of those. So go for about 8 breaths here on each one. It should take you about 6 to 8 seconds to get all that air out. If you're doing this really quick with a 2 to 3 second exhale, there's probably more air in there and we're missing an opportunity. He's thinking push the floor away. Right? So I know I spent a lot of time on that one, but it's a really important one. It'll help you out immensely. Part 2 of this one, he's going to lay all the way flat on his stomach here. And now we're going to take that newfound shoulder blade motion that he just had, and we're going to do dynamic blackbirds. So he's got his hands on his temple, and then those hands are going to wrap all the way around, so his shoulder blades are moving in every possible position, pinching right underneath the scapula here. Hands come right behind the back. It's almost like that you got a rested position that hopefully you've never experienced. And then those hands are going to come all the way back around and meet behind the head. Now, as he's doing these, he's got his abs pretty well engaged because it's really easy to hyperextend through the lower back. You don't want to do that. So that's why we did the bear breathing first. Those arms down are just going to go back, forth. Don't throw them. Actually control so you're getting the internal rotation and external rotation that we're looking for a good solid 8 reps on this one the entire way. Exercise number 3 is going to come back into that quadruped position here. We're going to do a hip CAR. So the hip CAR stands for controlled articular rotation. And basically, we're going to get as much end range, as much mobility out of that hip socket as possible. So you don't need to get that thing replaced so that your hips and your glutes do what they're meant to do as opposed to your lower back or your knees. So we're going to go with, let's go this side. He's going to lift straight on up. So this knee is driving as high as he can. Then that foot comes high. So now the hip is internally rotating, coming all the way around and then straight on down. Now when he comes back, he's kicking straight up with that heel, so a lot of hamstring. And then notice he flipped that position. The knee comes back around. So let's go one more time here. That's going to come up, come around. Now that foot's coming as high as he possibly can and getting into almost like a kickback position. And then he's going to start in that kickback position, and he's going to round on over and bring through the knee. Now notice he didn't go into any kind of hyperextension there with his lower back. He didn't end up rounding or shifting. And that's what your body's going to want to do. You do this right, that hip's not moving very far. So if your leg is coming all the way up, high up in the air, consider that you're maybe compensating with another way and really try and dial that in, lock out those other elements of your body so that we're actually getting the concentration from that hip. All right, now from here we're going to go into a down dog, up dog. So really loosen up not only the shoulder blade, not only the chest and the shoulders, but also the hips from a vertical standpoint. So from a push-up position, he's going to look towards his toes as he hikes his butt up in the air. He's doing a nice hard exhale. He's pinching right underneath the shoulder blades. He's keeping his legs nice and straight, so his hamstrings are definitely getting loosened up, feeling on fire. And then when he comes back, nice big inhale. He's going to look towards the ceiling, pack through the shoulders. Abs are on tight, but notice he's not overly active here. I like this pretty soft, which is what we want. It's really easy to tense on up. And then he's going to just fold back and forth like a little hinge. If he really needs to, he can shift into one side. He might find one hip is a little tighter, one hamstring, and you can even glide back and forth through that as well. Usually about 8 to 12 reps on these, depending on how you feel, is going to be really good to be able to rock through. Now we're going to be standing on up, getting some rotational elements with a Tspine rotation. So he's going to go into almost like his RDL type position, soft knees. He's completely flat through the back here, and he's just going to have one hand go straight up in the ceiling right by his side, and his eyes follow that hand, right? So he's getting a nice rotation of his thoracic spine here, back on down, and he's just going to alternate back and forth. What's easy to have happen is it's easy to look towards the hand when it's behind you and create a rotation where your head comes down. He's not doing that, and I want you to try and avoid that as much as you possibly can. We're trying to just move through this upper back. His hips weren't shifting as he was rotating. So if you need, notice his hands are wedged into his legs. That can help you prevent yourself from shifting of the hips if that's where you're actually driving that. Because otherwise we're rotating from the lower back, which we don't need to do. We want to get that mobility back from your upper back where it's most important, right? Now, once we're already done with those, we're gonna shift on to some lateral leg abduction here. And so all we're doing is from the standing position with feet both together, he's gonna kick straight on out one side and then back on down. You are gonna lean a little bit, that's natural because you have to align yourself directly underneath that foot. But he's keeping this foot as straight as possible, and what we're doing here is we're turning on some glute med. So that's that lateral part of your hip and part of your glutes that really need to activate so your knees don't cave when you're doing things like squats and stuff. So by doing this on each side, he's just teaching those muscles how to turn on, how to engage, be ready for those activities. And if you need to hold onto a pole to stabilize yourself, be my guest. It's not about balance on this one. It is just about activating the right things. All right, we're gonna go into my favorite one, Superman Cossack squats. He's taking this nice wide open stance, and just like a regular Cossack squat where you shift into one hip and you keep this leg straight and rotate up the foot, the only difference is he's getting into this wonderful Superman position. I also call it the Usain Bolt. It's what I taught him to do after he won. And you're gonna pop back on up once he's doing this, and he's gonna go back, forth, or all to one side, depending on how he feels. Now notice this elbow does make contact with his knee. He's now driving that knee out. That's the whole purpose of this, opening up the chest. It's really hard to hold in this position for ISO, so give him some props as he's going back, forth. So we're trying to keep the one leg straight, to stretch out that inside thigh, teaching this one to go in, getting some rotation, opening up that hip. It just does wonders. So try and work yourself up to 8 on each side, but start with 3, and then progress over time as you're going with these. Do take your time with them, don't rush them, don't let the knees bend, don't let your body fold over. There's a lot of don'ts, but I believe in you and I know you can do this right. And then we're gonna finish off just getting a little bit of extra cardio here to make sure we're good with some twinkle toes. So decent wide stance, tap the ground, nice little hop. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. You're not trying to jump to the sky, but he is standing up tall on each one of these. And this is just gonna get the legs ready to rock, definitely getting your heart rate up and ready for a great workout.